I am super excited to have you on. And, just to jump into what we were just on, we're living in a world where AI is just progressing at absolutely insane levels. Like, I don't think I was not being, very entrenched in the technology world. I wasn't surprised when we got to text to video. I was surprised at how fast we have gone from Will Smith eating spaghetti and it barely looked like anything to now I can't tell the difference anymore.
hmm
And in a
hmm
world that is going to increasingly fudge the lines of what is real and what is fake, I think we both kind of agree that the thing that is going to be so important for not just people who own their own business, not people who are working in companies, not people who are just going through living their lives, it's going to be authenticity. Like that's the thing that's going to matter so much in a world where everything can be faked. So I know this has been kind of a recent passion of yours and something you've been really diving into. And there's so many other layers as to what authenticity means to us as people. So talk to me a little bit about what diving into that has been.
Yes, and thanks obviously for the introduction and for our chat beforehand. And I love being able to have the intellectual stimulation with another person's brain, but more importantly, their experience. And because we can hear the word authenticity, but yet what the heck does that really mean until we actually go through that process of feeling usually the opposite of authenticity? And
Mm,
so let's start there first. Usually,
okay.
what I find with the opposite of authenticity is somebody that cares so much about what other people think of them,
Okay.
or they are so concerned about their own beliefs of themselves. So when they say, I'm getting in my own way, that's another version of self rejection. You have
Mm,
people walking around with these titles of being a people pleaser or walking on eggshells or being a perfectionist, all these things that are, call it like a walls of this box that we get stuck into. And there's this individual that's stuck inside of this box of all of these labels that have been put on them. And then there's a comes a point in our life that we just want to break outside of that box. And that's what people end up calling, let's say, anxiety or depression or
mm.
frustration or whatever it is. And so, what does a society do? They just throw medications at it, right? They're just like, oh, just dumb yourself down to be okay in the box. No, there's a part of me that wants to break out of the freaking box that I've been in. And
Right.
that's yeah, and so I look at it as this like huge wake up that like anxiety and depression, frustration, all these emotions is not bad at all. It literally just shows how much power you have and you're just locked and stuck in this box and you're just ready to break free. So I had this really interesting experience this last weekend and I'm sitting down and I don't
Mm.
know if anybody loves people watching. Do you love people watching, Steven? I freaking love people watching.
Oh yeah. No, no,
And
no. Absolutely.
okay. And I'm sitting down and I'm at this like country westerner thing, where a bunch of people are dancing and all these people are cookie cutter wearing the same thing, all dancing to the same style. And then there's this one dude off to the side and he is literally dancing to the own beat of his own drum. And I just looked at him and I was like, you know what? That is so your eyes don't go to the cookie cutter. Your eyes go to this authentic version of him that he's happy, he's smiling, and he doesn't give a rat's ass on what anybody's opinion is at all in the room. And
Taking very literally dance like nobody's watching. So,
totally. Yeah, totally. And he just did his own thing. And you know what? The more that I watched, the more intrigued I got because it made me feel safe to be my authentic self. I wanted to go dance with him because
oh, that's
because he
interesting.
was
Yeah.
it it becomes magnetic, right? When somebody is fearless and being their authentic self, there's something that magnetically pulls us into those individuals to say, how do you do
Mm.
that? How can I be like that, right? And so anyways, I sat him down because of course I had to just tear apart his brain because I was like, I got to get to know this guy.
Right.
So I sit him down and I go, look, okay, I've been enough in this world to know that authenticity usually comes from a complete identity crisis, a devastation to your core of
Mm.
who you thought you were. Can I ask you if that's what happened to you? And he goes, not just once, but 7 times.
Wow. He had the number ready to go.
And I thought, Yes, and that's usually what we call these identity crisis or these lost hopes, these lost dreams, this like what we thought life was supposed to be, all these
Mm,
different things, right? And he sat down and explained like, you know, when you are in this box and you really just when it comes destroyed, you literally feel like this pile of mush surrounded by the blanket, and that is the caterpillar in the chrysalis phase turning into the transformation. And what do? We fear it. We're deathly afraid
mm,
of this, like kind of like what they call the ego death, or like this version of us that's stepping into. And so going back to what you're mentioning as far as now tying it to AI, you know, people are so, when I see AI and how it's going to be just, in my opinion, it could either do two ways. It can, one, make us just shrink more, safe in our bubble, more into that box, or it makes us be able to utilize AI to be able to step into a version that was way more bigger or powerful that we wanted to do. So it
mm.
really, to me, that's how technology is. It can cripple us or it can blossom us.
Yeah.
So that's my thought. But I want to hear what you have to say on all that so far.
No, no. I mean, that was great. You could have kept going and not asked me my opinion. That was awesome. I love the story and the insight that you had about the man that was dancing was really interesting because for me, I'm actually a really big dancer. I love dancing.
Mhm.
And I have never been afraid. My brothers are actually very similar to this. We would, go through wedding season. And there was a joke a few years ago when we, were everybody we knew was getting married, right? We were of that age, and it was just, wedding every other weekend in the summer kind of a thing. And there was always this joke of like, oh, are we just getting invited to this wedding because like people want us dancing on their dance floor? Because we knew that because people would literally come up to us, like the bride and groom at weddings, or I would be told, if I was in a wedding by the bride of like, okay, after our dance, we need Steven on the dance floor because once he's on making an idiot of himself, like everybody will get in. So it was like weird. I'd never thought about it like that. But then when you told that story, it actually made me think of it. And I
Mm,
was like, you're right. Because I don't, you and I were talking about this before. It's like, I am more on the side of I need to care more of what people think about me than the other way, in a healthy perspective. And and I never thought about the fact of like if I was able to get out there and just have fun or be my authentic self, that it gave people permission to opt in and do the same. And that's
mhm.
something that I've found works very well in coaching. I, get called a lot of things. Being fake is not one of them. If anything, people are like, scale back on how genuine you are right now. But I never thought about it in a broader context. So I love that insight. That was really interesting. What One thing that you said that got me interested though, you were talking about the death of ego. That's actually something that's really interesting. Can you talk about that a little more?
Yeah. Death of ego, when you think about how when we first start off, where we got these developmental brains, and it's egotism, meaning it means how do we fit into this world? So we are just trying to identify who am I rather than what is this? It's who am I? How do I fit in? And this is where a lot of the I am good enough, I am worthy, I am smart, like that's where a lot of the identification starts to form, and a lot of where the ego is formed, right? The very ego of egotism is all about the I am. But
Okay.
what happens is we start going through life, and we there's moments that we get to realize that by having those identifications is where we didn't apply ourselves or didn't take that leap of faith that we should have, because
Mm,
we felt like we weren't this thing. And so then we get stuck in that kind of shoulda, woulda, coulda, where we start living more of our past life rather than like this future that we all had
right.
ahead of us. And so it's not until one is able to stop for a moment, because we get in the rat race of life, stop for a moment and actually ask ourselves, are the thoughts that are in my head, are they true?
Mm,
Are all of the beliefs that I have absorbed, are they real? And when we take that moment of perspective, perspective shifting is one of the biggest things of expansion that takes the control
a
back
hundred
to us
percent.
to the creation of who we're becoming rather than this protection of who we've been in the past. And so I geek out on the neuroscience, the physics aspects of this, understanding our, what ultimately stops us from, like you mentioned, the designing of our life. The
Right.
designing of our life, what we're going to realize, it's us. We get in our own ways. We think it might be these other elements in life, but it's not. When we really have that realization and it is us, well, then we go through the actual breakdown version that, like, we can try something for so long, but then eventually at some point there's going to be a thing called burnout. That's a perfect example
Right.
of coming into rock bottom and recognizing that the path we're on, if we aren't flexible and experiencing pivoting through life, if we're living in fear and no trust and we're just rigid with the way that things are, like you said, not having any fun, well, then what we do is we become so rigid that we go to the breaking point. And the breaking point isn't a
Yeah.
bad thing. I actually look at it, it's a wonderful thing. When somebody comes to me and I actually see an ego death, they literally feel like it is death on real life. It's a death in while they're living. And I say, welcome to this side. I've been
That's
there. I know what
right.
that's
That's
like.
right.
So now let's go to the other side, which is now being able to get out of the box and have that perspective shift. So let me know if that helped, or if you want to run off with that idea of the
Well,
ego.
so I want to add to that because this is actually a very interesting topic for me. I actually did a TED talk about a year ago on the power of overcoming challenges with an alter ego. And one of the things that there were basically three things that I talked about: what is an alter ego, what is not an alter ego, and then the third thing was an experiment that I did on myself. Because when the way I kind of came across this was I was researching, I wanted to coach more effectively, to help people more effectively. And what are we doing? Whether you're a fitness coach, a health coach, a therapist, whatever, you're a teacher at a university, you are guiding people through some form of change, and is normally what you were doing in whatever method that you do it. And change is not something we as humans are naturally huge fans of. And my whole thing was, how can I figure out, are there hacks out there? Is there something I can do to minimize the pain that people experience with change? And the pain can come, it can be emotional, spiritual, physical, mental. There's different forms of pain, right? But anytime there's a change that we see coming, we associate pain with it. Otherwise, we would have no problem changing. So I came across alter egos. And what an alter ego is not is a fake version of ourselves. That's probably the most common misconception. People think like, oh, that you're just making up some fake version of you. It's like, no, 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 that's not what an alter ego is. That's just being inauthentic, disingenuine. And what an alter ego is a compilation of things that you are and leaving out certain things that you also are that will not serve you on what they call the field of play. So, for instance, there are, the people that I talked about in the opening. The opening line of the TED Talk was, I did an experiment on myself for 90 days, and now I have something in common with Beyonce, Kobe Bryant, and Batman. So, it was a half decent hook. And for Beyonce, whether you like her music or not, her career is undeniable as one of the great all-time selling musicians ever. She has an alter ego called Sasha Fierce. Well, Sasha Fierce, she created because she had stage fright. Beyonce,
Mm,
of all people, had stage fright. So it wasn't that she had created this alter ego. And when you give it a name, I actually call it a super alter ego, because it's like,
mm,
now it's not an alter ego. Could be that I'm a dad right now. Okay, I have my son here with me. Great, I'm a dad. Okay, well, now I'm going on a date with my wife. Okay, well, now I'm a husband. Those are all alter egos. Well, do I interact the same with my son that I do with my wife on a date? No. Am I being fake with one or the other? No. But I'm highlighting different aspects about myself to be successful in that moment, in that relationship with them. That's what an
mm,
alter ego is. So then if you take it a step further in what I just call super alter ego, and you do what Beyonce did with Sasha Fierce, you are saying, and this goes to the what you were talking about with the who do you want to be? She said, I want to be an entertainer. I want to be a singer. I can't be afraid of the stage. So I am going to take all of my dancing skills, all of my singing skills, and all the confidence that I have in the moment, and that is now Sasha Fierce. What I am leaving is the fear. that is associated with it. And then that enabled her to get over it. And there's multiple different things about it, but we see it all the time in athletes and entertainers. They have these alter egos. And I was like, why can't we use those? So when you talked about the death of ego, I was like, that's a more permanent thing. That's very beautiful, I think, in terms of breaking through and transformation. And it makes you think of the phoenix, right? You have to burn it down in order to be able to rise anew from the ashes. So when you said that, it brought a different perspective on something that I had kind of accidentally fell into myself, and I just thought it was beautiful.
Yeah. And you know what's really cool is we all are having our own experience, whether it's coming from, let's say, a spirituality, or let's say if we're coming from neuroscience, or we're coming from physics, or it's coming from the things that like, book reading, or, that's what's so cool about it is it's all going to come to the same thing.
Mhm.
And that's what I really like, where we can bring it down into simplicity, because then it just goes into then this thing called fear. And for me, when I identified that I am a fearful person, it felt like I was never able to break away from that alter ego, or that ego, right?
Mm.
To step into that. And so one of the things I've learned is to be able to learn how to separate yourself from that. There's like you mentioned, multiple parts of you. There's dad, and then there's husband, then there's entrepreneur, then there's that, you know what I mean? But what happens is
Right.
people like to view themselves as one, right? The ego likes to view it as a one thing.
Right.
And then that what that does is it distorts our ability to be more than what we that's that box mentality of we get so stuck and trapped in this version that we start to get restless and start having this energy to want to break out. And that's what people, like I mentioned, call the anxiety, the depression, the hopelessness, helpless. I mean, it's just because you're just stuck and you're just wanting more. You want to expand. You want to find out what other parts of you is yet to explore. And so for example, when you mentioned fear and the kind of these parts of it, is there's I'm going to geek out on neuroscience here because it's
Do
just it
it. Do
helped
it. Let's go.
it helped me separate. Okay. So when you recognize that there's parts of your brain that are holding you back, it's not you, it's the brain. And the
Okay.
brain, there's going to be three parts in what I call the survival brain. Now, you might have heard it in different forms: reptilian brain, monkey brain, you know what I mean? Whatever.
Yep. That's the
Right. And
lizard
so
brain coming at you.
there you go, lizard brain, exactly. So many different names of it. But when we simplify it, now we're going to go peel it apart into the three parts. You have the basal ganglia that loves the familiar, which means it feels more safe in the past. Got that? You have the amygdala, that is your fear center. This is a place that's going to pull up anything fear oriented because it's a protection mechanism. And
Right.
then the third and final one is going to be your reticular activating system. And this is going to be the part of the brain that's your filter and your programming. And so what we want to do is we understand those three parts of the brain and learn to work with them. You said something important is that
Yes.
when we go towards fear, is it has to be able to feel safe in order to then break through. Because if you try to push through these parts of the brain, there's going to be resistance. It's going to
Yes.
say, like you said, change is scary, right? And so it's not until that change can feel safe by talking to these three parts of the brain in the most, by not running away, not ignoring, not judging them, not distracting or getting busy in our life, but instead understanding these three parts of the brain and saying, okay, look, I understand that you want me to be safe, but it's actually okay for me to be safe to be happy. Here's the phenomenal kicker. Most people that I find is they are actually, they, even though they want this thing called, let's say, abundance, or the relationship, or the love, the happiness, the expand, like whatever it is that their goal is. You
Hmm.
know what's interesting? They're afraid of it. And here's why. Because as soon as you have it, the fear of losing it is so much more devastating. And I had that same experience. And
Mm.
it's not until you recognize that that is the issue of why you're not getting the thing that you're so desperately wanting, is because this thing called fear.
Right.
And so, as you mentioned, kind of going into even like perfectionism, fear of failure. Let's just dissect that one for a
Let's
second.
go into that one. That this is such a perfect segue into that, because this is so critical for anybody, I think, at any stage of life. Yes.
So perfectionism, the opposite, right, is what they're running away from is the fear of failure. That's what
Mhm.
it comes down to. Okay. And now if we look at the fear of failure, if you dissect that and actually go, well, what is failure? Failure means giving up indefinitely, never trying again, laying in your bed, staring at the ceiling, and never trying again.
It's such a
I mean,
beautiful
ultimately,
reframe. Yes.
if you think about it, that is legitimately bed sores. That's legitimately tell your body's in
Right.
pain. You're literally like actually get so uncomfortable with laying there for the rest of your life that there really such a thing that like you could fail by just staring at the ceiling for the rest of your entire life? And everybody else says no. Well, then what you're
Right.
telling me is you're going to get up and you're going to try something different. Now, what that means is a pivot. So what you're
Mm,
going to see is our human brain loves to just see as things as linear. When we have a
okay.
goal, we imagine a straight line with a little flag at the very end and we say, "Here I reach it." We don't imagine that it's actually going to be a zigzag line throughout the entire process. And that's the pivoting that is required to get to your goal.
Okay. I, th-
So
you
what's
know, you said something and it kind of hit me. Call me out on this if this doesn't sound right. But the difference between I failed means a moment in time. Like at this thing, I have failed. Failure is the acceptance of the fact that it's permanent. And that was just interesting. I when you said it like that, I was like, that's the difference. Because I tell people all the time, I'm like, I fail all the time. I failed today at something. I had something I get on my to-do list. I didn't get to it. I failed. Am I a failure? Well, no, I would never say that. I was supposed to do something with my son. He's off today and everything. Am I a failure as a father because I didn't do this one thing? No. Did I fail in that moment as a father? Yes. And it's like, that's a really interesting distinction, I think, that people could learn to kind of accept because the way we realize to not become afraid of failure is to realize that you can fail and not be a failure. So call me out. That was totally organic, like just happened there. So if that sounded like a whole bunch of hullabaloo, let me know.
and I
but
will
but what
call
do you
you out.
is that kind of the mindset of what we're talking about here?
Yeah, 1,000%. I love because what you're doing is you are broadening the perspective, right? You're looking at a bigger scope. And so immediately where I'm going from there is we can only be in two states at a time. When we simply I love to simplify it like this. We're either contracted
Hmm.
by looking at things in a narrow perspective, like what you just said, I failed, and then you mark it as the end. But really, is it the end? Obviously not, right? But
Right.
expansion is the opposite. And this is the broader perspective. This is where we ultimately have control because we recognize that if I failed at something, doesn't mean I'm a failure. It just
Hmm.
means that in that moment, I have to course correct. I have to pivot. I have to adjust, or I want to adjust, or I want it to be a different way. Because here's a perfect example. Go broad with me for a second.
Okay.
I ask people all the time, what is your greatest accomplishment ever in your life? They take me to their greatest accomplishment. They tell me all the glorious things about what they did, blah, 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 and I go, great. Did it come easy? No. Okay. And did it happen the way that you expect? No. Was there a lot of zigzags along the way? Yes. Got it. So every single person you're telling me that goes through this thing called the greatest accomplishment of their life has never been a straight line. So then
Yep.
you take back to this thing called perfectionism. What perfectionism is the fear of taking one step in front of the other because you're so
Mm,
afraid of this thing called I failed, when in reality, when you hear anybody successful say they failed their way to the top,
right.
that's what they're saying. So they're saying you have to put your foot in front of the other and make failure as your best friend, because now I use it as called pivot. I don't
Hmm.
even use that wording. I don't even use it in my vocabulary. Does it do me any benefit to expand me to become the version of me? No. So if I say, I pivoted today. I course
Okay.
corrected my business. I was able to evolve and grow to good. Wow, here we go. And when you imagine life as the zigzag, watch how much more you are able to run in the direction. Life is going to say, that's not the direction. Oh, not this relationship. Oh, not that opportunity. Great, but broaden your perspective and you're going to see that your future has the possibilities, the opportunities, the limitless, the people you haven't met yet, the tools you haven't done yet, the
Right.
resources, the books you haven't done. I mean, literally, the expansion of our future is unlimited.
Mm.
But if
So,
you're
oops, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, just so if our heads turn to the past, we don't see it. So when you pull your head into the future, you do see it. So no,
Ah,
go ahead.
oh no, that was great. Well, what to to plug you a little more, I love the name of your company, Align, and
Mhm.
with what you do, as a you call yourself a transformational coach. I think
Mhm.
is that kind of your unofficial title for that?
Yeah, I'd like to try to not be like, oh, I'm a CBT and an NLP and
I'm the
like
same way, don't worry. But
okay.
I love that when you were talking about that because um you have uh background. Tell me a little bit about the background that you had in the health field, and then how that has transformed into a line today, and how perfectionism played a part in both of those worlds. Because a lot of what you're saying, are the exact same things that I know people are dealing with their physical appearance. I know it's things that they're struggling with when they're trying to grow their revenue, or be a good boss, or be a good parent. Like, this is so universal, but I would love to hear some specific things, scenarios that you've gone through, and stories maybe on how exactly what we're talking about really played out.
Yeah, absolutely. So going out of the broad perspective and really kind of finding the details, I'm all experience. I'm
Okay.
definitely not one that came out of the book and oh my gosh, thank God for that. Like when you hit experience, you're eclectic. You have so many things that you can pull from
Mm-hmm.
being able to help somebody as an addict, to help a marriage and a relationship, to somebody that's with anxiety, or just somebody that's health and fitness. And what you are going to find, exactly what you just said, that success has a formula to it, and ultimately
100%.
the formula comes down to expansion. When are you what's your ability to actually just be ready to think outside of the box and get curious? Because success is never going to be that thing that we thought it was. It's always going to be that maneuver. And so for me specifically, I started off as really small in my life, afraid of everything. If there was anybody that had the more
Mm.
fear ever in my life. And so I thought, let me just be a school teacher, because that would be the easiest thing that I couldn't fail at. That's what I originally wanted to do. And then next thing you know, I meet my fiance, and he's like, well, how about we be an entrepreneur? And I was like, sure. I don't even know what the heck that is, and I don't even know how to spell it, but let's go ahead and try this road. Holy crap, does that thing hit you upside the face with a ton of bricks? And if you're an
Oh,
entrepreneur, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You go to
yep.
work and you don't know if you're getting paid. That's crippling. The fear of going to work and actually that you lost money for your business, that the mistake that you made actually hemorrhaged through thousands to millions of dollars, that's terrifying as an entrepreneur. And that's just
Totally.
the reality of it. So what happens is you either sink or swim. That's just what happens as an entrepreneur. And and for me, my entrepreneur journey within the is that starting off with owner and founder of bootybands.com was high low, high low, high low, high low, extreme success to extreme failure, extreme success to
Mm.
extreme low. And what you're going to find is that if we're going through this immense like high low experience where you don't have the sustainability, and when you don't have the
Right.
sustainability, you don't have the control. You're getting whipped and pulled around in life, and you don't know what's controlling the success versus the failures. You're just like trying to hold the reins to something, and you don't really know what's going on. And it wasn't until my utter destruction of my own identity, of realizing, oh my gosh, like I'm not a entrepreneur. Like I am Danita, and this thing that we build is not bigger than me. I'm the one that built it. I am bigger than it, and I can go and
Mm.
build whatever the hell I want to build. And
Mm.
so when you have this identity breakdown, which is the most beautiful thing that a human experience can do, and I'm sorry that we if you're going through it, I'm sorry. It sucks. It's painful. It's dreadful. It's depressing. It's the worst thing you can possibly imagine. But guess what? On the other side, you're going to become something that you have no idea who you even the powerfulness you come from it, because you become a blank canvas, and you
Mm.
start to realize, what do you still have? Well, you still have your birthday, you still have your love of your family, or you still have your experience and all your wisdom behind you. Like, you recognize it doesn't rip you from everything. And then from there, you go, well, now what? And you just move forward, recognizing that you have nobody's opinion to give a flying rat's ass about anymore.
Right.
You have these limiting beliefs that have sucked you into it, and that's what created the whole identity crisis. And then you as you clear yourself of this blank slate, you go, well, now I feel free. Now I can
Hmm.
really do what I want to do and what I'm meant to do. And so for me, it was a complete, utter destruction of myself. Meanwhile, simultaneously, I was taking people through coaching and fitness. So I got to experience my own utter destruction and breakdown through entrepreneurship on the business aspect of it, while they were going through the same thing on a fitness aspect of it. Because you can't be the same person and expect the same result. You guys, it's
Oh,
that's
it's
the
I
definition of
love that. That's
insanity.
beautiful. Say that one more time. I want to make sure everybody does it. You said it fast, and I want to make sure everybody hears that again.
You can't be the same person and expect a different result.
No, I was working with a coach who recently told he recently told me something that I got the concept of this, but the way he said it was so good. He said we were focused on a to-do list. I was like, hey, I want to focus on this to-do list, and he's like, that's great, but first we got to focus on the to-be list. And I was like, what's a to-be list? I had never heard of that term before. And he goes, well, he's like, you're right. There's a whole bunch of things we got to do, but before we have to figure out who you want to be, who you
Mm,
think you need to get to that next level. One of my favorite sayings is new levels equals new devils. And guess what? If you've ever played a video game before, that video game character at the very beginning is not the same video game character when you're fighting off the final boss. You've got, you're bigger, you're faster, you've got new gear, whatever the case may be, right? That's us in life. So who do I want to be? And then figure out the to-do list on how we make that happen along with everything else along the way. So that totally aligns with everything you said. And I wanted to repeat it real quick because I didn't want people to miss that. It is such a huge shift, whether you are trying to lose 40 pounds and put on muscle, whether you are in a rocky place with your marriage and you've gone from two single individuals who got married, didn't have kids, now you've got three kids and bills, and the spark just isn't there anymore for whatever reason, or you are deciding to eat what you kill and become an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter. And there's a reason why we parallel a lot of sayings in business with physical journeys, right? And in health and working out, all of these things, like you said, success leaves clues. There is a mathematical formula to a lot of this stuff. And, the common denominator in that is who we choose to be, who the I ams are. Um,
mhm.
Not, there is I don't want to knock it too publicly, but there is a alcohol recidivism or an alcoholic group or alcohol support group, not an alcoholic group, sorry. And they have a really bad recidivism. I'm struggling talking recidivism rate. Not a lot of people find success with it. I think it's something like 12%. It's very popular. It's been around a while. And one of the main things that everybody knows about this group is that what you do is you get in there and you say, hi, my name is Steven and I am an alcoholic. And it drives me crazy because it goes to exactly the opposite of what you and I are saying. The reason they have such a low success rate is because we are drilling into these people that they are something and they will never be able to not be that thing. So no wonder they spend the rest of their life struggling with it and eventually relapse. So it's a huge thing. I get heated about it. Like, even like, look at me, got to cool off a little. So, but I'm sure you've probably heard that too, coming from where you're coming from. And it's just, there's as a Christian in the Bible, Jesus makes some pretty big statements about I am who I am kind of a thing. And it's interesting when you take that parallel into who we are in our own lives and see the power that statement, the I am blank, what that does to us from a neurological, everything you said earlier, the neurological perspective, the spiritual perspective, the physical perspective. I'll give you a perfect example of one that I'm going through right now. You're going to laugh at this.
Okay.
This is kind of silly,
Okay.
okay? But it's important to me. I recently had about 2 months ago, I had a really bad health issue. One of the worst ones that I've had. I had gastritis, didn't know what was going on, lots of bloating, just I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks. I was bedridden. I couldn't move. It was terrible. We didn't know what was going on. I couldn't even get to the ER because for 7 days, because I told my wife, I said, I can't sit up long enough to be seen in the ER to get a CT scan on what's going on. So a lot of stress, a lot of things that were going on, compounded with some caffeine, bad sleep, all this other stuff kind of created the perfect storm of what was this gut issue. And one of the things that I, will fully acknowledge that energy drinks aren't that healthy for you. I know that. But I don't like coffee. I've never liked coffee. My grandpa told me when I was 5 years old that coffee would put hair on your chest. And that freaked me out because I thought I would grow it instantly when he told me that. And I thought all the kids would make fun of me. So I stayed away from coffee my entire life. Well, now here I am, an adult. I have three awesome kids that run me ragged, and I like caffeine. So during this, we were pinched for like 4 months with some incredible pressure of things that were happening in our family with other health stuff. We were having to care for them. The kids' business was going great, which was kind of bad for me because they had to work more. It was crazy. So it was this like 3 to 4 months pinch that made me get to that. And then basically I came out the other side. I said, I have to make better health decisions. I'm going to start drinking coffee. What did I do to start drinking coffee? Well, the first thing I did is I said, Stephen, you have said for 30 something years you don't like coffee. Have you tried every single form of coffee on the planet? I'm pretty sure there's a lot of them. Every mixture, every this, every that. And I was like, well, no. Okay. So that's the first thing. Second thing, you do like coffee. You do. You just don't know it yet. So stop saying you don't. And I use the alter ego that I created. His name is Hotshot, by the way. So, and I describe him as me on 2 Red Bulls and a shot of tequila. Ironically, that's how I describe him. The Red Bulls. Again, we're back to the energy drinks. So but that was the thing for me. So now he's 2 shots of espresso and a shot of tequila. I don't know if that mixes well, actually, but whatever. So this is it. This is it. I know if anybody's listening to this episode right now, they're probably laughing, but the why for me is really important. I don't want to be sick like that again. I want to treat my body better. I'm 37. I can't do the things that I did when I was 25. Those 2 a.m. Taco Bell runs are over for me, okay? And coffee is one of the ways that I'm going to solve that solution. And it has been amazing how literally I'm on my 3rd cup of coffee as of the other day. I've already found something I enjoy. They're the Conlitas or something like that. It's like 2 shots of Cuban coffee with a little cream, something like that. I don't even remember. But this is a silly thing to a degree. But the point I want to make to people is this. These are the types of small habits that will have big impacts in your life. And if you start using the things that Davina is talking about, that you're talking about, that I'm going through, if you do these with some small habits, over the long term, you will notice massive changes. If you do this with how you spend money, if you do this with how you communicate your spouse's love language, if you do this with the lies you tell to yourself, stop telling yourself you're a perfectionist. No, say, no, I'm struggling with perfection in this moment. You don't have to be a perfectionist. Okay? That's an I am statement. That's different than just saying, I struggle with perfectionism sometimes. It will change your life. So sorry, I went on a little bit of a rant there, but it hit a personal note for me because I'm sitting here looking at it and going, man, like it doesn't matter if I coach this. It doesn't matter if I listen to smart people like you. It's like it is a constant journey and a constant battle to become the person I want to be. And that's a huge part of it.
No, thank you for sharing that because I believe that analogies or stories or real life examples are so crucial for somebody to maybe grasp onto. And I just want to speak to those that maybe they weren't able to grasp on that story. Maybe they have reactions with coffee and maybe their journey isn't coffee. So as Steven's explaining his
Or like the majority
version,
of people, they
right?
just love coffee already and they think I'm crazy. So
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah,
what he's explaining is his merge over this thing, like, and I call it the bridge effect, right? You're on this side
the
of it,
bridge
you're
effect.
struggling with something, and there's a bridge of the change in order to get to the other side, and that was his version. And so for what happens is when we try to go from a fixing version or maybe our story, it might not work for some of you that are listening. But the
Mm.
reality we want you to take mostly from this is that the bridge is where you saw that Stephen got curious. This is the expansion of one's mind. He started to think, well, what if? And have I tried everything? And
Mm-hmm.
and maybe I do, right? That is the opposite of what Stephen could have done is, well, there's no way it's this and I can't do that. And, basically a contracting version of him. And so the expansion is the bridge, and this is called the unknowns. And this is where people are absolutely terrified is to step
Oh,
onto the bridge
yes. Oh, I love
of the
this. Yeah.
unknowns because you're in a world of curiosity. And every time I bring people to the bridge, I go, okay, it's time to get curious. And they go, well, I want to have the answer right now. And it's just a problem with our society and how we are as humans, is we want the immediate gratification. So what happens through this evolution that you guys are seeing is there's the version of you now, there's a bridge of complete unknowns, which the only way to get through is through expansion, curiosity, and then
Mhm.
you have the other side. It's only about trying. It's only about
Right.
failing your way there. He had to
Yeah.
try multiple types of coffee. He had to try multiple types of brands, or different types of milks, or different types of mushroom coffee to hazelnut, to figure out like what his thing was. But as you see, that's a perfect real life example of what this beautiful journey is. Now, if somebody were to say fake positivity and say,
Mm.
well, just be positive.
Right.
Like I remember somebody would say, just be positive, and I wanted to flip them off because
I
I was
know.
so
I
upset
know. Yeah.
that worked for them, right? And so what we have to find is our own unique experience on the
Hmm.
bridge of what that thing is for you. And so many people
Yes.
try to like take the approach that other people are, but the reality is, again, that goes into the authenticity part, where we're going to full circle here, is
Yep.
your authentic version of you coming into your greatest version of yourself. Call that through health, call that
Mhm.
through wealth, call that through your relationships, call whatever goal that you're trying to accomplish and achieve. There's always going to be a bridge of the unknowns.
Right.
And by bringing your brain and body into safety into the unknowns, powerful. And then through repetition, you're going to get there, and you're going to recognize how powerful of a journey of this that 92% of the world doesn't even know yet.
Hmm.
Only 8% of the world is able to evolve and to change and to really get to this other side. And so it's so extremely powerful. So thank you for sharing the analogy of that.
I'm actually a little
And
curious of something you just said. You said 8% of the world is able to accomplish that. Where does that statistic come from?
yeah, so there's a really interesting study that came out that talked about how about 92% of people are caught in contraction, which basically they're saying, "Oh man, I don't have time and I don't have energy and I'm just so exhausted through my day and I can't figure this out and change is scary and blah blah blah," right? And it's because their internal worlds, like that version that your coach said of what do you want
Hmm.
to be, that's your internal, okay? Mixed in with the external world, the things that we can see that are tangible, such as the tools and the working hard and all this stuff. When these are out of alignment, is when we don't reach the goal. It becomes burnout. It becomes
Mm.
exhaustion. It becomes tired. It's not until when you blend the two of those together, the neurological pathway loop is thoughts, emotions, actions, outcome. You can't break that. It's the neurological pathway loop.
Okay.
And people are trying to break it in half, and they're trying to just focus on the things that they can see. I just want to work really hard. I just want to put the metal to the metal and just push through. And anytime somebody says, I have to, I got to, I need to, I'm like, ooh, you're out of alignment. Immediately, I
Right.
know they're out of alignment, all right? Because I know that their inside world is contraction, but yet they want so badly to have a different outside experience.
Mm.
And so that's the beauty of alignment, is when you can create like what your coach did for you is he goes, well, that's great. That's what you want to do, but let's go into the B. That's the A. Let's go to the B.
Yep.
Right. And so what he was doing there was he was putting you into alignment. So
Hmm.
that way you stopped living this life of polarities against yourself, which is
Right.
where all of that comes from. So what happens is only 8% actually understands where they operate as a whole unit, and how this is so much easier. I'm going to explain why. The thoughts all control the emotions, all of
Yes.
them.
All of them.
All the emotions are dictating your actions, all of them.
I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, you hear me talk about mindset all the time. I know it feels like a cliche sometimes, but it's just true. It just all starts there.
It does. The
And the
brain
reason I
powers
asked it, and
everything.
sorry not to just go back to it, and then I want to let you finish because I know we're coming up on some time here. The reason that I throw this out, and I'm not saying that nobody, the 8% number was interesting to me because there's another 8% number that jumps out, which is that 8% of the people in this country are millionaires. Now, that's not to
Mm,
say that you that is exactly what happened that made people millionaires, but I know a lot of millionaires, and they would definitely lean more towards, the growth minded side versus, the I'm sorry, I forgot your term, but basically the fear based. So it was just an interesting correlation. I'm like, huh, that's interesting that those two stats lined up. I don't know how much causation correlation goes in between it, but it's just interesting as the same number.
it is. It is interesting. And then And then you recognize that maybe everybody in your inner circle might be fear-based and contraction, and then it might feel very hard to break out of that because you're so surrounded with it, right? And so it's a fascinating topic, but once we are able to truly get the control over this thing, that's where you don't have to do more, push more, be more, all that type of stuff. It really does become of so much ease. And what people say balance or flow, it's a real thing, which is big.
Which is, I actually love talking about flow, and I wish we had 30 minutes to get through that. So,
Yeah.
but I know that there's so much that you and I could go through. This has been an absolute pleasure. I want to give you the last word here. Everybody, if you want to look, I'm going to have all of the links in the bio, just as usual. Anytime I have a guest on, website, socials, that will all be tagged here so you can find her. But if you could share one thing with everybody, whether it was something that we talked about already or any other thoughts that you have, would love to just give you the last word on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll leave my favorite quote by Albert Einstein. I'll leave you with that, and then also a gift for your listeners. So,
Mm,
Albert Einstein is what changed me. He helps absolutely helped hold me to something that felt as real as gravity to be able to get to where I am right now. And the quote is, "Everything is energy. That's all there's to it. All we have to do is match the frequency of the reality that we want. There's no other way. We will get that reality. It's not philosophy; it's physics." That's my favorite quote. And then with that, as a gift to all your listeners, I have what's called callwithdanita.com. Anybody can book a call and do a free assessment with you. Totally
perfect.
as a gift. Totally as a gift, not looking for anything. What I like to do is I like to help people through this inner world of brain and thoughts and beliefs and all this type of stuff, actually make it tangible. So what I
Mm,
do is I'll take you through an assessment. I'll show you where your frequency is at. I'll show you where your beliefs are at. I'm going to show you where your nervous system's at. And when you have that, now you have a roadmap of where to go, how far off you might be or how close you might be. And from there, it feels so good to be like, oh my gosh, okay, this is what I have to work on. And I'll give you that roadmap. You can leave with that and you can run off and explore the world of how you're able to basically just take those metrics, raise them to expansion. That's it. Make it so simple. It does not have to be complicated running around in circles. I swear if I can just
mm.
simplify it, it's you just becoming your expanded self and you have it in you. I promise you, you are not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. If you're just screaming with anxiety or depression or hopelessness or you're lost, it just means that there's a version of you ready to break free out of the box. Get ready. It's the most amazing experience of your life. You are meant to be so much more than probably what you're at.
I love it. If you have been listening or watching this on YouTube and anything that we've said along this, just you were like, oh, I felt that. I felt that. Please go to the description, click on that link, and take the call. Do it. The upside is infinite. The downside is that you just are stuck where you are. So please take her up on that. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. We are probably gonna have to do this again because I know there's so many other things we could have got to, but I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephen, for having me. Appreciate it.